report Eric Bieniemy could be returning to the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, oh man. We talked about this earlier in the year, but it has gotten absolutely lit on fire with a recent report. We'll tell you what that is right here on the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Jay Sanders. But before I get into why this is a thing, do you want him back? Do you want Bieniemy to come back as the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, or at least in some capacity? Well, then do me a favor. If you do, like the video. I'm curious to see. Liking it tells me that you want Bieniemy back. So get down there. It takes a couple seconds. Hit that like button. I'd certainly appreciate it, as we know who wants Bieniemy back and who doesn't. Here's the report. Pete Sweeney broke it this morning, saying, Andy Reid says Eric Bieniemy came in and talked to the offensive players ahead of the AFC Championship. This was approved by the Washington Commanders because he was not fired yet. Now he's obviously not on the Commanders. He's a free agent offensive coordinator or coach in whatever way that would be. But this was just wild, and I think we sit here and say, it worked. The Chiefs scored 17 points, and that was enough. That's all they needed. Granted that I think they could have scored more. They played really kind of seldom throughout the entire second half of the game, but they didn't have to really force anything. They didn't have to force the agenda. And when they did, guess what? MVS caught a 34-yard pass. They know what to do. So what exactly is happening? Why was he in the locker room? What did he say? All that. Well, good news. James Palmer on NFL Network today talked about it and gave us some interesting insight into the whole breakdown and ordeal of Mr. Bieniemy coming into the Chiefs locker room. Here's what it was. The night before the AFC title game in Baltimore, my understanding is he drove up, went to the team hotel, and met with the offensive side of the ball. Now, there was a play up that they were going over, and Eric Bieniemy went up, and it was an old play. Kind of went through the install with the entire offensive group for old time's sake. Mahomes told us there were kind of different. There were kind of some chill bumps with guys in that room with EB back in front of them. Mahomes said you could feel him. You could feel his presence, and when he is in a room, I had a long conversation with MVS about EB, and he told me last year there may have been times where you tuned him out a little bit with all the yelling. This is wild. He was in their pregame stuff talking about what is going on, how do we run a play, and he went up and told them and basically coached them in a way. I do want to preface again, he was on the Commander's staff at this point. He is not anymore, but they gave him approval to do this. He was there. He was really, in some ways, coaching the Kansas City Chiefs at the time. Wild, first of all, and the best part is that was just the beginning. People talked more about this rumors and how it could potentially lead to a potential coaching job with the Chiefs in 2024. Now, obviously, his yelling was a big part of him, and, well, MVS had more to say, saying he yells at everyone from Andy Reid down to the janitor. But when he was back in that room that night, kind of got the feeling that I missed it, and it took it maybe for granted. I bring this all up because remember the issue that the Chiefs team had at this point of the season, whether they were pre-snap penalties or lineman issues. And I had a number of people late in the season in the building tell me that their thoughts, if EB was in the room, some of those things, the attention to detail type stuff, wouldn't happen. So having him maybe back in the building before the AFC Championship game, maybe that little bit of restart, a bit of knowledge he brought in may have fine-tuned things heading into the Super Bowl. Wow. Listen, I'm going to be quite honest with y'all. When we had that first video talking about Eric Bieniemy, I thought it was kind of a slim shot he returned just because I figured the Commanders would keep him. I figured he would go somewhere else. There's no more offensive coordinator jobs, or at least there is very few, and the Chiefs could potentially bring him back in some sort of way. Would you like to see him back, though, in a Kansas City Chiefs shirt? I want you to type Y for yes if you want him back in 2024. If you like what you've got, and we've seen it, or here back in the Super Bowl, you don't need him, then I want you to type in for no. I'm curious to see what everyone thinks. Now, whether you think yes or whether you think no, make sure you're getting your money in on Prize Picks by getting a $100 deposit match by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and using the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 players to have projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. I'm 6 of my last 8, so go tail me on this one. I've got the more on Patrick Mahomes on a half a passing yard. That's a deal. They're putting up 99% off his total. Yeah, I'm going to take that. Isaiah Pacheco, more than a half a rushing or receiving a touchdown. He's scored in every single playoff game of the state. I see him scoring again. And then McCaffrey. We've talked about receiving backs and how much of an issue they've been for the Chiefs all season. McCaffrey is probably the creme de la creme of that. So I expect him to get way more than 35.5. I'd probably say 40. Now, rushing the ball, maybe the Chiefs are able to hold him, but we will see. Go put these in and get your $100 deposit match by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and using that code CLNS. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this season has been the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And if you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Prize Picks offers a bunch of promotions just like that Patrick Mahomes one, so make sure you're checking them out, like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts a select player's projection of up to 25% to provide even more value. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for that first deposit match of up to $100. Shout out to Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Bieniemy and Nagy comparison. Listen, I don't want to sit here and talk bad about Nagy because we are in the Super Bowl, but the stats just don't lie. The yards per game, down by almost 70, actually over 70. The rushing yards per game, down by 10. The passing yards per game, down by 30 plus. The points per game, down. The wins, down by a win. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that Matt Nagy's bad, and I guess he was in the beginning part of the year. But Eric Bieniemy is just, in my opinion, so much farther above in just the way he connects with the team. And we talked about it earlier this year, and obviously I think it's kind of gone by the wayside given the Chiefs have had recent success with the offense and are back in the Super Bowl and all of this. But Mahomes has showed frustration with the coaching and the play calling throughout the season. Obviously, the pinnacle of that was the Raiders game, where he was really pissed off. Everything was going wrong. He had back-to-back plays where, in some facet, he was a part of a turnover, one of them being a scoop and score, one of them being a pick six. So just a lot of things have gone wrong. And I think EB almost like grounds this team. Mahomes had a quote about this earlier in the season, and he said this about Eric Bieniemy. EB is going to be harsh on you. He's going to really try to get the best out of you every single day. He's going to hold you accountable whenever you don't even want to hold yourself accountable, and it made me a better player. Listen, get him back. If it makes Patrick Mahomes a better player to have him around, then what in the world are we doing? This should be an easy decision. Go there and get him back. This offense may not have had the issues it had. The penalties that Jawan Taylor had, the penalties that Donovan Smith had, the penalties that this entire offense had could have all been avoided if Eric Bieniemy was still with the team. So I asked the question, the confidence. Is it up with Bieniemy? Is it down? If Bieniemy is back with the Chiefs in 2024, I want you to scale your confidence rank in the Chiefs team potentially being right back in this spot next year in Super Bowl 59. Scale it from 1 to 10, 1 being least confident, 10 being most confident. I'm curious to see what y'all think. Let's talk more about this Bieniemy stuff and how exactly it could work into being with the Chiefs. Arrowhead Act, a nice little Chiefs reporting website, talked about it saying, as of right now, Reed also said that Bieniemy is in the running for a couple of unfilled jobs. But it's also not difficult to see Reed trying to provide cover for an old friend who could use a place to land, at least for a bit. I want him back. I got to be honest. I know that Matt Nagy has gotten this Chiefs to the Super Bowl, but was it really him? I think that's the question we all have to ask ourselves. Was it really Matt Nagy who got the Chiefs here, or was it the Chiefs? I kind of think it was the Chiefs. The thing is, though, if that happens, what do you do with Nagy? Dude got you to the Super Bowl and you're going to fire him? I mean, I don't know if that's what you want to do. Now, the thing is, what are you going to do, demote him? I don't think Matt Nagy is going to stay with the Chiefs if he's demoted to quarterbacks coach, whatever. That just doesn't seem like a fair play for him, which I completely understand. I mean, I wouldn't want to stay if I was demoted, so why would he stay? The hardest part about this is, like, when we talked about it last time, the Chiefs had a potential to be a first-round exit. Now you're in the Super Bowl for the second year. You're back here. You could win it for a second year in a row. Are you firing Matt Nagy after that? Well, let me hear it, Chiefs Kingdom. We firing Matt Nagy after you get to the Super Bowl. Type F for fire. Type K for keep. I'm curious to see what Chiefs Kingdom thinks. If you're firing Matt Nagy even though the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, or are you keeping him because the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl? Wow. I do know this, though. We're going to have everything you want and more right here on the Chiefs Report all weekend long. We have a live watch party at 3:30 p.m. Central Time coming up on Sunday. And I'm telling you, coverage galore is right here on Chiefs Report. We've got exclusive interviews. We're going to have more shows coming out throughout the next coming couple days. So I know that you got a lot of choices for your Chiefs options and Chiefs coverage. You're in the right place. Hit that sub button. And as always, Chiefs Kingdom, peace out.